Okay, good morning class. This is our second module for the second semester. This is all about relevance, mechanisms, evidence, bases, and theories of evolution. By the way, what is evolution? Okay, what is evolution? Why does this giraffe have a long neck? Why do this bleeding heart flowers have such a strange shape? Okay, evolution explains the features of all organisms from microbes to humans. Evolution also is descent with modification, meaning changes. It changes. Changes in heritable traits from generation to generation. Recall that a population is a group of interbreeding organisms of the same species. And evolution occurs in a population when allele frequencies change from one generation to the next. So we are going to learn the different types of evidences on evolution. Okay, remember also that evolution is detectable by examining the population's gene pool, the entire collection of genes and alleles. Okay, even for the same species, gene pools differ from population to population. The gene pool for a population of Swedes differs from that of a population of Asians. So you can see that picture. If Swedes migrate on to Asia and interbred with locals, then allele frequencies in the gene pool will change and evolution has occurred. Okay, did you get that? Okay, now let's go to the first evidence of evolution. It says there, fossils provide evidence for slow change over time. Fossils of extinct species suggest that living organisms are descended from common ancestors. If you have heard about Charles Darwin, he was the naturalist on the HMS Beagle, a ship that sailed around the world in the year 1830s. Okay, and Darwin's time on that Galapagos Islands was especially influential to the development of evolutionary thought because he described 14 distinct types of finch, each different from the birds on the mainland, yet sharing same features. So here, Charles Darwin proposes that there is evolution going on finch birds because they have now different features when you compare it with the finch on the mainland. And according to him, there are 14 distinct types of finch that are developed in the Galapagos Islands. Now, here is, let's consider the humans artificially alter allele frequencies. Do you know what is allele? Okay, an allele frequency is calculated by the following equation. Number of copies of an allele over or divided by total number of alleles for the same gene in the population. That is what we call allele frequencies. Humans artificially alter allele frequencies. It says artificial selection or selective breeding also helped Darwin form the theory of evolution by natural selection. Do you know what is natural selection? It is nature that selects which one to be included in the breeding, and that's why it is called selective breeding. Okay, in artificial selection, a human chooses desired features, then allows only the individuals that best express those qualities to reproduce. It is somewhat similar to DNA technology, because the scientists have to choose the sequence of DNA, the sequence of interest, to be reproduced. So that is also in artificial selection. In natural selection, environmental factors cause the differential reproductive success of individuals with particular genotypes. Okay, here is the summary of logic of natural selection. In the observations of nature, there is what we call genetic variation. There is also limited resources, and there is also overproduction of offspring. The inferences from observations are struggle for existence, next, unequal reproductive success, or natural selection, and third, descent with modification. Okay, now let's expound this natural selection, and example of this in molds evolution. This organism blends almost perfectly into a leafy background. How could an organism like this arise? Okay, have you seen this? Have you heard that there are some insects that when they hop on a green color, their color will automatically becomes green. When they have to stay in a brown tree trunk, their color will change into a brown. And that is what it means by organism that blends almost perfectly into its background. Okay, each generation, the best camouflaged individuals survive to reproduce. The alleles conferring camouflage become more common in each generation. What is the use of this camouflaging of the insects or of animals? They will be free from the predators, because predators cannot easily find them as their prey. So they can reproduce more because they are not eaten by their predators. But natural selection does not create camouflage alleles. Instead, it strongly selects for camouflage alleles that arise by chance. Okay? How about in humans? Natural selection operates on the variation present in a population. Since more individuals are born than resources can support, the struggle to survive is inevitable. Okay? So you can see here the picture. Some hair are curly. Some are straight and blonde. Some are black and straight. Some are brown. And there is even a bald head. So natural selection operates on the variation present in a population. So if this is the population, this is where the natural selection is going to vary from a varied source also. But it doesn't mean that all of this is going to survive, because there are some cases that some genes that not survive. Maybe we will undergo some of those later on. Okay, some individuals in a population are better than others at surviving and reproducing. So maybe only a few or maybe all of them will be transferred to the next generation. We do not know, but only the surviving population will prevail. Now, the heritable traits conferring these advantages are adaptations. Features that provide a selective advantage because they improve an organism's ability to survive and reproduce. Maybe if their features are an advantage to survive and reproduce. What if they are sickly? What if they meet an accident? So their traits will not be forwarded to the next generation. How about in bacteria? Okay, bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics have an adaptive trait that non-resistant bacteria lack. When antibiotics are administered, resistant bacteria are strongly selected for. Have you heard that when you have taken an antibiotic before, you should tell your doctor so that he may know what kind of antibiotic you are going to take now, because maybe your body is resistant to the same antibiotic that will be issued or will be given to you. Okay? Now, antibiotics cannot create resistance allele. The variation is resistance while already present in the population. The presence of antibiotics causes the resistance allele frequency to shift. Okay. Now, this one, natural selection eliminates poorly adapted phenotypes. Okay, so it doesn't mean that natural selection will also select the poor features. As environmental conditions change, the phenotypes that natural selection favors will also change. Adaptations that seem perfect in one environment would be completely wrong in another. Okay? That is clear. And we should know that natural selection does not have a goal. Okay, look at this orchid. This orchid in its wasp pollinator have evolved alongside one another for long enough that no other animal can pollinate the flower. Okay. But the orchid does not evolve in order to be better pollinated by the wasp. Neither the orchid nor natural selection has foresight. Okay? So, natural selection does not have any determination. It just naturally appears. Instead, the orchids best suited to wasp pollination are the most likely to reproduce, so their alleles get passed to the next generation most often. Okay, so let's go to this, how allele frequencies change. Scientists test evolution against a null hypothesis, which states that allele frequencies do not change from one generation to the next. Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium is the unlikely situation in which allele frequencies do not change between generations. And here are some other assumptions of that Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. First, natural selection does not occur. Second, no mutations. Third, the population is large enough to eliminate random changes in allele frequencies. And fourth, individuals mate at random. And 5, no migration. Okay, let's consider this one. Okay, you can see here the alleles. P plus Q equals to 1, and P squared plus 2PQ plus Q squared equals 1. What do you mean by P? P is the frequency of the dominant allele, and Q is the frequency of the recessive allele. Okay. Q, where is Q here? Okay. Since the D gene has 2 alleles, the frequency of dominant allele plus the frequency of the recessive allele must equal to 1. Okay, so this one is the frequency of the D allele. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1. The frequency of a dominant allele is 1. And the frequency of the recessive allele is 1. Okay, we have 1 big D, D, and 1 small d, D. So that is the principle. The frequency of the dominant allele plus the frequency of the recessive allele must be equal to 1. Okay, let's proceed to other principles. This one is, I think this is an insect. Natural selection can shape populations in many ways. 3 modes of natural selection, which are directional, disruptive, and stabilizing, are distinguished by their effects on the phenotypes on a population. A, the directional is that light and then dark. So the increasing pigmentation is from light and it's getting dark in the middle, but later on it is decreasing in its dark pigment. When the habitat changes, meaning the trees darken the habitat, you can see that the the direction of that pigment is increasing from light and more on dark. But in the first one, about maybe 40% is getting dark and it decreases. But this one, light is 40% and 60% estimatingly are dark. Okay. We will see another one. Sexual selection directly influences reproductive success. At face value, building complex nests, flashing showy plumage, and butting heads with rival males all appear to waste energy. How can natural selection allow for traits that apparently reduce survival? Okay, sexual selection is a type of natural selection resulting from variation in the ability to obtain mates. Okay, you see there are animals that if they are not strong, they were not able to win a mate. So it depends on their health and their strength and their ability. Okay. Here are some other ways. Evolution occurs in several other ways. Factors that change allele frequencies over time. One is natural selection, is what we have discussed. Next is mutation. Next is genetic drift. Then non-random mating, and then migration. What is genetic drift? It occurs purely by chance. It is most common in small populations. Okay, you can see here the illustrations. Okay, let's have this. When only a few individuals establish a new population, the allele frequency might change. This process illustrates the founder effect. That is another principle. There's another principle here. A population bottleneck occurs if a disaster drastically reduces the size of a population. We call that bottleneck. The previous one is called founder effect. Okay. Migration moves alleles between populations. This might affect the allele frequencies in both populations. Okay? Correct, right? Okay, I think I have discussed many evidences of evolution. But for us who are Christians, we believe that there is evolution, but not to the extent that includes human being that was at the start was originally from these animals, because an animal who will undergo evolution, still they have the same species. Because if there is a transfer of the genes from an animal to human being, the product of that cannot produce a fertile embryo. Cannot produce a fertile embryo. So, for Christians, we believe that we have been created during the 7 days of creation by God alone. Okay, have a nice day.